Traveling is my job, so staying in hotels has been common for me. I have spent nights in countless cities, but what happened to me in a small, old hotel called the Grandview Inn completely altered the structure of my mind. I was out of town for a deal, and I found this hotel in a hurry. It was a bit old, cut off from the main highway. The caretaker handed me the key, room number 404. When I entered the room, the first thing that struck me as odd was the arrangement of the room. The room was large, but all the furniture, the bed, the table, the chair, had been deliberately pushed to one side. One corner was left completely empty. That corner. It wasn't just empty. There was no window there, yet it was strangely dark, as if the room's light couldn't reach it. I thought it must be an old hotel design, finished my work, and started preparing for bed late at night. It must have been around 2:30 a.m. when I woke up. The room was completely cold. I turned on the heater, but the coldness was emanating from that dark corner. I got up and looked. The corner was right there, perfectly clean, empty, and black. My eyes were fixed on that corner when I suddenly noticed that the reflection of the room visible on the TV screen in front of me was warping. I immediately turned off the TV. I was scared. When I looked directly at the corner, it appeared completely straight and normal. But when I looked at it in a reflection, like in the glass of the door, it didn't look like a room. It looked like a deep, infinite void. The next night, I placed my chair near that corner. I wanted to understand it. I sat on the chair and looked towards that darkness, and that's when I heard. The sound wasn't coming from inside the walls. That sound was coming directly from within the corner. It was the slow crying of someone, but it didn't sound like a human being. It was like the sobbing of a broken machine that could never end. I immediately got up and came back to the bed. Out of fear, I took out my laptop. I started searching for the hotel name and room 404. I didn't find any specific information except for an old comment on a local blog. The comment read, 404, the corner that doesn't know your reality. My hands started shaking as soon as I read this. On the third night, I decided I would leave this room. I packed my luggage. Before leaving, I noticed an old leather diary on the floor. It lay between the bed and that black corner. I picked it up. The diary belonged to a previous traveler who had stayed in the same room. The last entry in the diary was filled with madness. That corner breathes. When I don't look, that thing moves forward in the room. I have pushed the furniture against the wall so that it stays in its place. This morning, the bed had shifted slightly. Now the corner is closer to me. The diary slipped from my hands after reading this. I looked behind me. Yes, the bed had shifted slightly. Earlier, the bed was right against the wall. Now there was only a 1-foot gap between the bed and the wall, and that black, dark corner. It had now moved more toward the center of the room. It wasn't just darkness. It was the absence of reality. I remembered the diary mentioned that when the corner moves, it takes the furniture with it. I noticed a slight tug on the bed, as if an invisible force was pulling it towards itself. I tried to run out of the room, but my body was completely numb. My mind had given up. Now I am lying here on my bed, and the corner is right in front of me. It is horribly cold here, and I can hear that same sobbing sound very loudly. This is not my voice. It is the voice of that corner. I know I will not be able to get out of this room, because I am now nothing more than the last traveler in that diary. If my voice is reaching you, perhaps it is proof that reality has cracks, and I am trapped in that corner of room number 404, where the world ends. The story of this night belongs to me and my two friends. We had decided to camp on the edge of a forest, far from the city noise, where hardly anyone goes. There were 3 of us, myself and my 2 companions, Jake and Ethan. We had pitched 2 small tents. Jake and I were in one, and Ethan was alone in the other. We fell asleep around 12 a.m. The silence of the forest was such that you could even hear the sound of blood flowing in your ears. In the middle of the night, I had to urgently urinate. I woke up, unzipped the tent, and stepped outside. The moon was almost full, so there was a faint light. The scene outside strained the nerves in my brain. We had 2 tents, but now there were 3 tents. The third tent, exactly like ours, was pitched 50 feet away. It was perfectly straight, khaki-colored. No one else could have come here. This was a protected forest area. I looked towards my tent. Jake was sleeping inside. I looked towards the other tent, where Ethan was. That was silent too. I slowly started walking towards the third tent. As soon as I shone the light on it, I felt as if the tent fabric was subtly moving from the inside, as if someone inside was breathing very slowly. There was no sound, just complete, intense silence. I ran back and scrambled into my tent. I closed the zipper and didn't dare to wake Jake out of fear. I took a deep breath and tried to peek through the zipper. And then my heart forgot to beat. Now there were 4 tents. They were all oddly scattered, as if someone had randomly thrown them. I backed away, my foot stumbled, and a sound was made. Jake woke up. He asked, panicking, "What happened? Why is it so dark?" I didn't pay attention to what he said. I just pointed outside and whispered, "How many tents are there?" Jake looked outside. His eyes widened. He slowly said, "Who are these people? And we only brought 1 tent, right?" Hearing him, the blood froze in my veins. We only brought 1 tent? No, we had always brought 2 tents. 1 for me and him, 1 for Ethan. I quickly said, "We brought 2. Ethan is in the other tent." Jake now looked at the 4 tents pitched on the ground. He said, "No, man, I remember. We only brought 1. Ethan was going to sleep in his car. Why do all these tents look the same?" I realized that the tents were not multiplying here. Reality was multiplying. I pointed towards the tent where I had presumed Ethan was sleeping. That tent was still subtly moving inside. Jake couldn't understand anything. He said, "All right, let's wake up Ethan and run." He walked towards the tent he believed to be ours. He opened the zipper. That tent was completely empty. At that very moment, the adjacent unknown third tent, the one that was moving, its zipper slowly began to open by itself. I grabbed Jake tightly. I said, "Run." We both grabbed our flashlights and keys and started running. While running, I looked back. The tents were multiplying rapidly. They were all joining together, creating a khaki-colored labyrinth. I felt as if those tents weren't physical objects. They were doorways, being used by some unknown force to increase its presence in this world. We ran, and when we reached the highway in the morning, we never looked back. Even today, when I think about camping anywhere at night, a chill runs down my spine. That night, we started running not from the forest, but from multiplying reality. I know that unknown force must still be opening those doorways into the world. What I fear most now is when I close my eyes and when I open them, I feel that right next to my table in the bedroom, another me, looking exactly like me, might be sitting quietly. And he will ask me, "We only brought 1 tent, right?"